أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الذين يحملون العرش ومن حوله يسبحون بحمد ربهم ويؤمنون به ويستغفرون للذين آمنوا ربنا وسعت كل شيء رحمة وعلما فاغفر للذين تابوا واتبعوا سبيلك وقهم عذاب الجحيم ربنا وأدخلهم جنات عدن التي وعدتهم ومن صلح من آبائهم وأزواجهم وذرياتهم إنك أنت العزيز الحكيم وقهم السيئات ومن تق السيئات يومئذ فقد رحمته وذلك هو الفوز العظيم إن الذين كفروا ينادون لمقت الله أكبر من مقتكم لمقت الله أكبر من مقتكم أنفسكم إذ تدعون إلى الإيمان فتكفرون قالوا ربنا أمتنا اثنتين وأحييتنا اثنتين فاعترفنا بذنوبنا فهل إلى خروج من سبيل ذلكم بأنه إذا دعي الله وحده كفرتم وإن يشرك به تؤمنوا فالحكم لله العلي الكبير صدق الله العلي العظيم. طيبوا أفواهكم بذكر الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوات. میرے خیال کو نسبت ہوئی مدینے سے، میرے خیال کو نسبت ہوئی مدینے سے، مہک گلاب کی آنے لگی پسینے سے، میرے خیال کو نسبت ہوئی مدینے سے، نبی کا نام اگر لو تو اس قرینے سے، دعا یہاں سے چلے اور اثر مدینے سے، میرے خیال. صلوات. رونا اے اپنی اکبت لئی، رونا اے اپنی اکبت لئی، زینب تے کوئی احسان نہیں، رونا اے اپنی اکبت لئی، زینب تے کوئی احسان نہیں، جیڑا غم شبیر چ نہیں روندا ہے آدمی پر انسان نہیں، رونا اے اپنی اکبت لئی، نانے دادین بچاون لئی، توحید دا رنگ جماون لئی، گھر اجڑ گیا اے زہرا دا، کسی ہور دا کچھ نقصان نہیں، رونا اے اپنی اکبت لئی، نہ فوجاں کولوں ڈر بچڑی، چھیتی دیر نہ کر بچڑی، اجے سوں بابے دے سینے تے اجے شام والا زندان نہیں رونا اے اپنی عقبت لئی میں دھیاں حیدر صفدر دی اتے دوتری پاک پیمبر دی اٹھ پہر کھلوتی رہیاں میں ایس امت نو پہچان نہیں رونا اے اپنی عقبت لئی صلوات
کیا دیکھتی ہے صغرا زینب کے آنسوؤں میں کیا دیکھتی ہے صغرا زینب کے آنسوؤں میں منظر ہے کربلا کا زینب کے آنسوؤں میں برچھی کا زخم تازہ تا زندگی رہے گا برچھی کا زخم تازہ تا زندگی رہے گا اکبر کا ہے کلیجہ زینب کے آنسوؤں میں صغرا نظر اٹھاؤ قاسم کا حال دیکھو صغرا نظر اٹھاؤ قاسم کا حال دیکھو بکھرا ہوا ہے لاشا زینب کے آنسوؤں میں عباس کے بریدہ ہاتھوں کی داستان ہے عباس کے بریدہ ہاتھوں کی داستان ہے بہتا ہے غم کا دریا زینب کے آنسوؤں میں زندان شام میں ہے چھوٹی سی قبر لیکن जिंदान शाम में है छोटी सी कब्र लेकिन मौजूद है सकीना ज़ैनब के आंसुओं में। ज़ुल्म और सितम का मंज़र सब देख ले मदीना, है शाम और कूफा ज़ैनब के आंसुओं में। क्या देखती है सुग़रा ज़ैनब के आंसुओं में। मंज़र है करबला का ज़ैनब के आंसुओं में। सलवात।
My dear brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. We thanks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give us tawfiq this year to do the Ashura, to do Muharram, and this is a Safar. As you know, today is the day of the Arbaeen of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And next week we still have next week actually the great musibah is the musibah of Shahadat الرسول Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. So usually the fellow of Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salatu wa salam, they go next week for the Prophet, and the week after Shahadat Imam al-Hasan al-Askari alayhi afdal salatu wa salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. But for the program, for the Muharram and Safar program, today is the last night. And so we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to give us opportunity. It's a ni'mah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Imam al-Hussein alayhi afdal salatu wa salam. Without his blessing and his calling all of you, none of us would be here. And you should thank your parent. And because with their dua and with their love for Ahlul Bayt alayhim afdal salatu wasalam, you never come here. And also thanks for Haaj Haadi to be here in Muharram and with us in a 14. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless him. Thank you, all of you, my dear brothers and sisters, those who support the program by any mean or aspect, those who is coming, those who participate, read Qasida, read Salam, Noha, Latmiya, Ziyara, those who has cooked and bring food, those who has helped financially, any aspect, all this record and all this has been inshallah with Muhammad and Al Muhammad inshallah. And as we mentioned, we all when reborn again, we go to the second life, then you're gonna find how valuable this, whatever you did in those in a few days, how valuable it is. The news from Karbala, they said there's over 21 million people who went to to Karbala for the 14th, for the Arbaeen Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. And so far there is nothing really serious. Everything went okay, went good. And all the believers, they start to go back to their home. And so may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect them, accept their a'mal inshallah, and inshallah they go to their home safe and sound. My dear brothers and sisters, we heard a lot of a noise, people talking to each other, especially on the side of the sisters. And he recite the Quran, Sayyid recite the Quran, and you are talking. And Quran himself, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself said, when you hear the Quran, فَاسْمَعُوا وَأَنصِتُوا, listen and try to understand, try to comprehend. Quran, not to talk with each other. Many of you are still like, on the phone. I don't think so. You're coming all the way from your home to the center to watch your phone. If you want to watch your phone, playing with your phone, you can stay like in your home. So please take the opportunity. This is a great opportunity, especially for the youth. This is really great opportunity to you to understand, to learn, and because there is no other place except this place can give you this information and can provide you this information. So this is opportunity, my dear brothers and sisters. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you all, and we all thanks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And like we start the first day, we answering the call of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. Today, I humbly request you, together inshallah, we call 10 times, لبيك يا حسين 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 لبيك يا حسين. صلوا على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وآل محمد. Inshallah, with your salawat, we call our brother Haaj Haadi to come to the member مع الصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على
سورة مباركة الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين. الحمد لله الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله، والصلاة والسلام على خير خلقي والنور أرش أفضل الأنبياء والمرسلين، حبيبنا وسيدنا وسندنا وشفيعنا ومولانا أبي القاسم محمد. وعلى آله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين. أما بعد، السلام عليك يا أبا عبد الله وعلى الأرواح التي هلت بفنائك. عليكم مني سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار، ولا جعله الله آخر لهد مني لزيارتكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي أبا الفضل العباس لأمير المؤمنين وسيدتي ومولاتي مصائب الحوراء وبركاته. Respected elders, brothers and sisters in Islam, I would like to greet you all with the warmest of Islamic greetings, and that is none other than Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Tonight, or today, marked the 40th day after the passing of our beloved third Imam, Imam Sayyid al-Shuhada, Imam al-Hussein, alayhi afdal as-salatu was-salam. And this day, the 40th, has an interesting significance when we refer to the blessed Quran, the noble Quran, and when we look at the traditions of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam. I promised last night that I will be diving into this concept. Of course, it's not very deep because at the end of the day, when it comes to Allah's wisdom, we all say, Allahu Alam, who am I? But if we can dig deep and also read through the literature that is available, we can essentially disseminate what's happening in every course of these 40 days, 40 years, or just the number 40 in general. Before I go into that, I saw a lot of confused faces from yesterday's lecture, and I see there's a little bit of a despair in people's face and saying, what's he going to say now? What is he going to do with my mind tonight? And it's not there to make you despair. It's not there to make you have an existential crisis about what on earth am I and what am I doing here. Rather, it is the approach, and this is the foundation of your evolving as a human being as you progress through life. You will, at some point, be hit with this concept. So last night, for those that weren't there, we discussed several concepts. The first one was that our reality in hayat dunya, life on dunya, doesn't mean life on earth, rather life in this reality. Dunya comes from the root Arabic word adna, which means the lowest. This is the lowest form of reality that you can see. And we also mentioned in the Quran that the Quran oftentimes calls this reality one that is of a delusion, one that is of amusement, one that is that we are in competition with one another to show off our wealth or our children. And indeed, God promises, indeed, this is but a delusion of the human being. So that was the first thing we discussed, is that part of this reality is that it is almost like you see in that movie, The Matrix, it is a simulation of what your brain is perceiving. The second part of the lecture we discussed was, a lot of the research that's coming out, primarily one of the ones that I mentioned was Dr. Anil Seth. If you guys have time, go look at his TED Talk. Don't look at me. He's the specialist. I'm just, relaying his story. But essentially we discussed optical illusions, how even sounds being heard by your brain can completely change in meaning based on a new experience your brain feels. I played a sound that was like, just jibber jabber, but then I played a sentence. And when you heard the same sound, you were able to go ahead and see that you were hearing words in that strange sound. And the reason for that is that each and every one of our individual experiences are the reason why we perceive this world the way we individually do. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes mention in the Quran several times. He says, we are telling you this message as an outreach so that maybe you will understand what you're doing here. But for as long as you remain in this deluded state, you make your religion a form of delusion for yourself, then you will also be deluded with the world. And then what does he make a promise? He says, and when they die, and we resurrect them, and they see the samawat, they see the seven heavens, and they see everything that they weren't able to see before, what do they say? They say, we have hasra. We have regret. Had we have known, we would go back and rethink the life we lived. So these were the two major concepts we discussed. And Dr. Anil Seth's conclusion in that TED Talk was that we are constantly hallucinating our reality based on our brain's best guess on how things should be. Oftentimes optical illusions work because our brain is thinking it should be a certain way, but then the drawing is actually tricking you. We saw that even if you put a fake hand in front of an individual and cover their real hand, the person after a while may actually think the fake hand is part of him, and they will jump when stabbed. These are all there in the YouTube video, the TED Talk of Dr. Anil Seth. Again, for more context, go refer to it. But why did I tell you this? Well, the last part is what got people, having existential crises, and I could see in everyone's face like, what? You know, what is he talking about? The last part, the conclusion we derive, and this is what every mystic, every person who has waken up to what dunya is, eventually comes to understand. This personality that is playing in my head, is it really me? Is that really me? Or is that my brain's best guess of how I'm supposed to be? Is that a concoction of my mind based on the experiences of society, the lights, the sounds, the emotions, that I eventually start morphing into being me? So the first delusion you have, or I have sitting here, is you all think my name is Haadi. My soul does not have a name. It was gifted to me in this badal, in this surrogate body, and then my parents named me. So switch that channel off for a second. The second thing you see is male and female. My soul doesn't have a gender. This is just a physical body I've been given. Then you want to look beyond that. You want to look at my ethnicity. I am of Iranian descent, brought up in America, in the West. You're constantly defining people. Your brain is guessing, right? My soul doesn't have an ethnicity. My soul belongs to Allah. It does not matter what borders you drew on which land and how your appearances are. Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. When you start switching these best guesses of your brain off, one by one, background, racism, I don't know, all of these presuppositions that you might have, your mind goes through an interesting phenomenon. It becomes quiet. You see, the entire time your brain was struggling to identify what you are. And your brain is not you. Your brain is part of you, just like, hey, imagine I said my entire existence is in this hand. No. This is a micro of what I am. It is part of a greater picture that is me. This body is not all that I am. And the organ in my head that is perceiving this low reality is not all that I am. So then the next thing I said is, you know that voice in your head that everybody has that's constantly talking to them? I said a psychologist called this an ego. It's not exactly you. And I posed a question that made people's heads spin. I said, if you're hearing a voice in the head and it's talking to you, like my favorite color is blue, or my name is Haadi and I am a speaker sitting on this member, I am hearing things. And I told you when I start a lecture, oh boy, do those voices start going off. You're going to blow this lecture. Oh, why do you even do this? All of these things happen to me, but then you would never guess what's happening inside my head. You can't hear what's happening in my head. But if you were to put those electrodes that they measure brain activity, you would see in my head, there is a thunderstorm inside my mind right now. So what is happening with your thoughts that you can hear only in your head is that, well, if someone is talking, who is the listener? This is an exercise that a lot of people put you through. If you go into any Irfani class, or if you go to any guru in India, or if you go to any, master of any consciousness, or a Zen master, for example, they'll make you understand this point. Because a person that understands this point is no longer unconscious, is no longer hallucinating their reality. They see that this reality is adna, it's the lowest. And my brain is not my entirety. It is just a culmination of my life experiences. So then where am I? What am I doing here? What am I doing here? Well, we said last night that, interestingly enough, when God architected this entirety, the ard and the seven heavens, or the seven realities, was it that he created the bottom first and then he went up? Or based on our own understanding, do we understand that the heavens were created first, the angels, then the jinns, then finally humans. So it is a top-down architecture. Where did I descend from? From one of those high realities. I came back down here because Allah found my soul worthy of being tested. Inni ja'ilun fil ardi khalifa. Khalifa, by definition, is one worthy of being tested or a successor. So then, we concluded one thing. We have a zigzag. We came from somewhere above, back to below. And where is our ultimate destination? Inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Let's not remember that ayah only in funerals. Don't forget where you're from. Allah says, and do not sell your soul short. Have you seen the one that his desires are his God? Surely what a pitiful existence. It's a sad existence. So now why I'm trying to say this is conceptual, but it is a tool for you. For example, if you get charged with an emotion at any point, someone causes you distress. We mentioned last night, the people of Sham were under the impression that Yazid had apprehended some, marauders, horrible people. Empathize with the people of Syria. They didn't know better. Instead of just condemning them all the time, they didn't know. They were brought up in this vacuum of Yazidi Khilafah. They were brought up in Muawiyah's. You know what Muawiyah used to do to the children of Sham to make people hate Ahlul Bayt? He used to get them baby lambs and goats, the people of Ahl Sham, the children. And you ever see a baby goat, how cute it is? It's like a little puppy back then. Once they became fond of this baby goat, Muawiyah would order his soldiers to go around the neighborhood and slaughter these lambs. The children would cry. Why are you doing this? The soldiers were instructed to say one thing. It is the will of your Khalifa Ali that this must happen. So then, in their reality, Khalifa Ali is bad. You see? Now, once I start empathizing of who is conscious and who is unconscious, now my behavior changes. One more example. A father is sitting on an airplane and his kids are making noise. He has 3 kids next to him and they're making noise, they're kicking and screaming. The people in the plane keep turning around and, giving them frowns. Shh, stop, I'm trying to sleep, it's a long flight. Until one of the people came up to the dad and they said, don't you know how to tame your kids? In this moment, the wisdom is the person is getting angry and he's coming to the dad to express his complaint. Now watch what happens to the human mind. The father says, can you explain to me how I'm supposed to tell the kids that their mother has just passed? The dad goes to the rest of the passengers. These kids are yatim. Their mother's passed away. What happens to the rest of the flight? Everyone starts playing with these kids. So that, perhaps, a little bit of the pain they're about to suffer from hearing that their mother has passed might diminish. What happened? It is the same kids. It is the same people. The reality changed. The reality changed. Your best guess of the situation got a little more clarity, didn't it? Your best guess of what's supposed to happen changed. And so, my advice to every single person that genuinely wants their consciousness to get close to the Imam of their time, to get close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My advice as your brother, as someone beneath you. If you have standards on how things should be, stop having standards. What do you mean? Like if someone lies to me, even if someone lies to you, even if someone disrespects you, even if someone wants to take advantage of you, you know what? Someone who's taking advantage of you, their life experiences has brought them to that level. Can you empathize? You can. but you may not know their story. Imams were doing this. Followers of Imams did this over and over again. A lot of people YouTubed me before I started speaking, and they said, Brother Haadi, we saw you did a debate with this ex-Shia, whatever, Hassan Shamrani. We saw the debate. Why didn't you get angry when he was disrespecting Imam Zaman Ajlallahu Ta'ala Faraja? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Apart from the fact that that wasn't really a debate, that was actually a complete disrespect to what a debate should be. In that video, if you go and watch it, just type my name in debate, you'll find it. You'll notice that he is constantly disrespecting our beliefs. And he's coming from a place of complete, vindictive, anger. And I'm cool as a cucumber. In fact, towards the end, I start laughing. But people ask me, how did you maintain it? How did you not get angry? Well, if you asked 5 years ago me, I probably would have turned red and my blood pressure would have gone up. Hearing someone talk about, Imam Mahdi as a Dajjal and talking in this manner, very disrespectful. In fact, even the comments in that video, the brothers of Ahlus Sunnah came and condemned this individual's behavior. They said, why did you disrespect him so much? Why didn't you let him talk? This is not the akhlaq of the Prophet. And the answer to that is that I have a responsibility, that I might be conscious that he is unconscious. In his hallucinated reality, something bad's happened to him. And he hates it. He wants to take it out on Shias and whatever country has to do with Shia Islam. He has animosity. It's okay. I don't have the same experience, so why should I get angry? Let him have it. In the end, the result is someone who gets angry loses the trust of the people. But someone who maintains their frame, what happens? Earns the respect, regardless of your sect and ethnicity and background. I'll give you one more example, and this one is a little funnier. One time in 2017, I was speaking in a city that borders the US and Canada. Right on the other side in Canada, it was called Windsor. And it was a dual program, so the Arabic lecture would come first, and then I would come do the English. So I came at the end of the Arabic lecture, and the speaker was doing the masaib, the musibah, and I was just standing there watching quietly. I had my little tablet with me for my sources and everything. And then this individual came up to me, and he's a grown man, looked about in his 30s, and I could tell he's huffing and puffing and sweating, and I looked at him thinking like he's about to have a panic attack. So he came up to me, he says, I have a question, I need someone to answer, but I don't know if you can answer this question. I looked at him, and in my head at the time, I was like, let's see what we can do here. I'm going to be the hero of this situation. That is my brain hallucinating, like I'm going to actually make a difference in this person's life. So I said, bring it on, saluni, ask me. And then he goes like this. He looks at me with a straight face. And wallahi al-azim, I'm not joking. Please don't think I'm trying to make anyone laugh. He looks at me and his sweat is, I think, what a question he's going to ask me. He says, Brother Haadi, is there going to be football in heaven? I should have said that. And then he adds on. He says, because if there's not, I don't think I'm ready to die. My impulse is your impulse. I was about to ask him, who sent you? Who's pranking me right now? But anyways, I seriously asked him. And he kept asking worse and worse questions to the point it got inappropriate at the time. And I answered him. Long story short, by the time I got to the minbar, I forgot my whole lecture. Because I was just sitting there glitching, thinking, how does a grown man become like this? So then I regurgitated one of my old lectures that are very basic. So I lost my lecture that night. Sometimes shayateen come in the form of ints, and they just whoosh. Point was, he's unconscious. This is what he has limited the value of his soul to a sports game played in America predominantly. And that's it for him. That's it. And this is okay. I accept. I'm not better than him or anything. This is his reality. And everyone will have their time, whether it is induced from a lot of pain that you might be going through, from social or loss of family member, or maybe it is a form of enlightenment. The reflection of the believer is worth how many years of worship? 70 years of worship. For Haaj, it was a moment of reflection. We say it time and again. His reality changed. Same person, same outcome, but his consciousness changed. And so last night's lecture wasn't to give you an existential crisis. It was to allow you to see what your brain is perceiving, one. Number two, create a separation. You can create a separation. You are aware of that voice playing in your head. So once you're aware, hold on, this isn't me. Why am I getting worked up? Create it. In fact, scold the voice. Hey, you're not me. Quiet. Stop making me remember the past. I'm not in the past. I'm here now. Stop making me remember who did what. I forgave them. Let it go. And then you'll notice mastery. So that when you see me speak, when that voice is flaring up, saying all kinds of things, I've tamed it. That it's not affecting me. I'm still able to get my message across. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. All right, so let us move on to the topic at hand. And this actually has to do with what the subject yesterday was. Because if you pay attention to the number 40, several times in the Quran, the number 40 has been mentioned with regards to or in relation to a passing of time. Now, twice it's been mentioned about the children of Israel. The first time it's mentioned was when Prophet Musa alayhi salam goes to Mount Sinai and he leaves them, right? The original time period Allah had wanted was 30 days. What happens is Allah extends Prophet Musa alayhi salam's fast. And he says, if you want me to deliver the divine book to you, you must extend it an extra 10 days. Now, between the extra 10 days, the Quran mentions an individual by the name of the Samiri, who goes and takes through his manipulation. Now, there's a lot of different traditions of what that was. He basically does some sort of sorcery or some sort of manipulation that a golden calf, a baby cow, starts to make noise. And he says, look, Moses has abandoned you. Surely he has died. I bring you now the voice of God. By the time Prophet Musa alayhi salam comes back in this 40 days, he sees that the people had abandoned his successor or his deputy, Harun alayhi salam, and they are worshiping a calf. Now, I oftentimes used to ask the question, of all creatures, why a calf or a cow? Couldn't it have been like something else? Maybe something a little more majestic? Why was it a calf? So the first thing that you'll notice about the number 40, and what I'm going to discuss, is that 40, when it comes to timelines, is a transitionary point from one state to another. Why were the children of Israel so obsessed with a creature resembling a cow? It was because, don't pay attention to them, it's okay, it's fine, it's a child. Be conscious. So then, why were they obsessed with a cow? Well, there was actually a cow god in ancient Egypt. At the same time, these events were happening how many years ago? Prophet Musa's events were actually happening 4,000 years ago. I look in my history books, at the same time, simultaneously, the Hindus also had a god of a cow. Both religions in ancient Egypt and Hinduism believed one thing. The cow, A, represented the mother. the motherly cow. Now, by the way, Krishna was actually a cow shepherd that would protect cows, one of their gods. The second thing it represented was agriculture. The 4,000 year mark, 4,000 years ago, it was a time where human beings were harvesting crops, and it was the age of agriculture. Now, if you follow people who believe in astrology, by the way, don't call me someone who's like into horoscopes and all that. Please don't say that. I study what they were seeing, what they were empathizing with. So, the ancient Egyptians, in fact, believed strongly in astrology. In fact, if you look at the pyramids, the way they were situated with, and the Sphinx were actually facing the star sequence of Leo as well. Now, they believed that the earth was in the age of Taurus. Taurus in the zodiac or the horoscopes was the bull or the cow sign. The people of that generation, multiple religions were worshiping a cow god. The ancient Egyptians called it Haruta, and the Indian one, I can look it up. It starts with a K. Forgive me, it skipped my mind. I'll come back to it. But they believed in a motherly cow god. The children of Israel had an affinity to the ancient Egyptian practices. And so, when the Prophet Musa alayhi salam goes for the 40 nights, what that did, it was actually a transitioning of the age of Taurus to the next age. The human beings were not ready for it. Based on the Samari's teachings or whatever, they said, Moses is about to lead us into the next generation of things. Cling on to that God that you always knew of. He's dead, forget it. So they clinged on to this calf. What was the age after Prophet Musa alayhi salam? According to these astrological beliefs, it was the age of Aries. The Aries is noteworthy to be a ram, a mountain goat-like creature. If you pay attention, both Judaism and Christianity never let this go. For Rosh Hashanah, for example, what do Jews do? They blow into a shahpur. That is a ram's horn. Now, every 2,000 years or so, the age changes. The last bit was Prophet Musa transitioning them over to the age of Aries. From Musa to Isa, there's another transitionary point to the age of Pisces. Why am I telling you this? Don't worry. There's a transitionary age to the age of Pisces 2,000 years later. The Gregorian calendar, how old is it? 2,000 years. Every 2,000 years, these astrological things change. Pisces is represented by two fish. Ever hear the famous story of Jesus feeding 5,000 people with 2 fish in the Bible? It is all over the ancient Roman churches and Catholicism. 2 fish everywhere you go. Look it up. 2 fish, Jesus, 2 fish. In fact, on the back of the cars of some of these Americans, you ever see Jesus and a fish? It is not that those stories are a reality. It is that those stories were hidden codes of people that were following astrological sequences. The first time 40 is mentioned is in the Quran when Prophet Musa goes to Mount Sinai, indicating a transition between 2 periods. It is a transitionary state. The Jews or the children of Israel were not ready to accept. Allah says, and when you think your prophet has died, will you turn back on your heels? This turning back on their heels was not only an abandonment of the prophet, was not only a worshiping of an idol, not just any idol. Turning back on your heels means going back to where you started. So, that's one. Then there's another in the Quran, if you just search the word 40, there's another point where Prophet Musa is actually going ahead with the children of Israel, and he wants to enter a city by which the children of Israel feel their life is being threatened by. This is in the Quran. They say, if we enter, we will surely die. So they disobey the Prophet of God, Prophet Musa alayhi salam. What is the punishment in the Quran for these people that refuse to enter the city? These children of Israel that were not ready to enter the city, according to the Quran, wander for how many years? 40 years. Once again, the number 40 is mentioned, but this time it's in a different trajectory. 40 years is someone who is, or 40 years is enough, or the number 40 is enough time for them to be forgiven of a very heinous sin. So, first one was a transitionary period between one to the other. Number two, the 40 is used to talk about forgiveness of sin. Is there one more place that this forgiveness of sin is used? In Surah Al Imran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the forgiveness of a sinner, ayah 135. The tafsir of this verse from the Imams of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salatu wassalam, Salu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad, indicates that there was once during the Prophet of Islam's time, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, there was once a man who was a gravedigger. They would bring the janazas to him and then he would bury them. He heard a rumor that some sort of, some very beautiful girl has recently passed away. Shaitan got the better of him. I'm going to say this much. When he was digging her grave, Shaitan got the better of him. He becomes so overwhelmed by what his action was, he goes to the Prophet. He barges in. He says, Ya Rasulullah, I have committed a grave action. Rasulullah says, Allah is the most forgiving, fear not. He says, no, I have committed an action so terrible. The Holy Prophet said, did you commit an act of shirk? Have you associated partners to God? He says, no, but it is very, very terrible. This conversation continues over and over until finally Rasulullah says, what have you done? He said, there was this situation and I caved in. Rasulullah says, leave. I fear the fires of hell might touch me from what you've done. That's how bad what you've done is. So then, the hadith mentions in this tafsir of the ayah that this man goes to the mountain and he spends 40 days in repentance of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, repenting and saying, I have done something terrible. After 40 days, the verse was revealed, 135, that Allah has forgiven this person. This again indicates that the number 40 has been associated with the amount of time needed to be forgiven for a sin. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. They say salawat removes envy from the soul. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. All right, give me one second. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. So we've discovered two. There's a third thing where the number 40 is mentioned, and again, it has to do with time. Whenever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala discusses the story of the children of Prophet Adam, Cain and Abel. Now the Quran actually doesn't call them by name, but we know through traditions that their names in Arabic were Habil and Qabil. Famous story. Now in Al-Kafi, one of them our most mu'tabar or reliable sources of hadith, Imam Sadiq gives the full story. Now I'm going to say what's in the Quran, and then I'm going to go ahead and add in the parentheses from the sixth Imam alayhi salatu wassalam. So the first verse that has to do with them, it says, and recite to them, وَاتْلُ عَلَيْهِمْ نَبَأَ أَبْنَاءَ آدَمَ بِالْحَقِّ. And recite to them the stories of the two sons of Adam in truth, when they both offered a sacrifice to Allah, and it was accepted from one, but it was not accepted from the other. This is where the story begins. And then one of them says, the one that didn't get his offering accepted, I will surely kill you. And then the one whose offering was accepted, Habil, says, indeed, Allah only accepts from the righteous. If you should raise your hand against me to kill me, I shall not raise my hand against you to kill you. Indeed, I fear Allah, Lord of the worlds. Indeed, I want you to obtain my sin and your sin, so you will be among the companions of fire, and that is the recompense of the wrongdoers. And his soul, the Qabil Cain, and his soul permitted to him the murder of his brother, so he killed him and became among the losers. This is the only glimpse we have of Prophet Adam's two children in the Quran. There's more in the biblical texts and Torah. This is how the story goes. Prophet Adam had two sons. They both grow up. They live a very good life. One of them, forgive me, they are both asked to give that which they have for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Habil, the good guy, let's put it, Habil goes and sees what he has, the most precious of what he has. He sees he has a very healthy lamb that he was looking to slaughter later, eat. He goes and he gives the best that he can for the sake of Allah. Qabil, the bad one, or Cain, goes and looks at what he owns. He sees there's a tree that has unripe fruits. Nobody wants them. So he gives the worst of what he has, and they present it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accepts the lamb but rejects the fruit. Why? Because Habil gave the best of what he had for Allah, and Qabil was trying to play games. He gave the worst of what he had for Allah. Allah does not want your worst. He wants your best. Are you willing or no? So then what happens is the fruit that was offered, according to the Imam, turns on fire, and it begins to turn into ashes. Cain decides to build a house over this fire, according to the Imam, and he begins to worship this fire. He says, I will worship this fire instead of Allah until he accepts my offering. So number one, you make a mistake. Instead of going back and fixing it, he goes and he opposes Allah, and he starts worshiping what? Fire. Shaitan descends upon Qabil, according to the Imam. Qabil allows Shaitan to enter. People who say there's no such thing as possession. The first human that was possessed was Qabil. This is why the Quran says, and his soul permitted him to kill his brother. Shaitan goes, and the hadith says what? Shaitan began to move inside Qabil like blood through his veins. Anyone who studied the science of hijama knows what this means, but if you want to talk about it off the member, we can discuss it later. Once Qabil is possessed, Cain becomes possessed. In the Christian view, it's called the mark of Cain. He gets a stamp that he's possessed by Satan himself. He goes on to kill his brother. Now this is what happens after. Prophet Adam comes unaware of the situation. He asks, where's your brother? Qabil says, I killed him. He says, why? Because his offering was accepted and mine wasn't. Prophet Adam falls to his knees and he begins to cry, a cry of only a father to a son. How long did Prophet Adam, according to this hadith, cry upon the grave of Habil? 40 days. Okay. So then, three things have now been defined. 40 has always to do with time at a point of transition, at a point of forgiveness, and at a point of grief. 40 Allah uses to define all of these. In addition to these supplementary things, if you want to break a bad habit, how many days should you stay away from it? 40. If you want to gain a good habit, how many days should you perform it? 40. These are all of the hadith that have to do with the number 40. And again, each and every time 40 has been used as a marker of time. Inshallah, we can start dimming the lights and go towards tonight's musibah. As you know, we are gathered here because of the 40th. Even after one of our relatives dies, we do the 40. 40 days after they have passed away and we have buried them in their grave, we do the 40, the Chehelom, the Arbaeen. So then, when it comes to Imam Hussein, we must ask ourselves, who was Imam Hussein relative to this, that the 40 becomes so important that the Imams always say, "O Shia," and do not neglect the 40th after our passing. Do not neglect the ziyarat of Arbaeen, the visitation of Arbaeen. There are multiple different stories about why the 40th is important. Of them, we can deduce from what the Quran and the words of Allah has taught us that the killing of Imam Hussein marked a point of transition in the Islamic Ummah. For the first time, never was the Khalifa to be taken seriously in a role relevant to the belief of the believers. For Yazid had committed an act so atrocious that now for the first time the need for Islamic scholarship came out. If you wonder why there was no such thing as the Hanafi or Hanbali sects before, it was because people still thought the Khalifa had access to that knowledge. After the passing of Imam Hussein alayhi salam, Abu Hanifa came, Ahmad ibn Hanbal came. The Khalifa Hisham ibn Abdul Malik would ask Malik ibn Anas, please come up with us, come up with a book for us. We have nothing. So then Imam Hussein would talk about a transitionary age. For now, this is now the age of Imam al-Hussein, the man that gave everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And like the Holy Prophet predicted to Sayyidah Fatima, there will come a tribe that will refuse to let go of the tragedy of your son al-Hussein, whom when they hear his voice, they too shall cry a cry of a mother who has lost her son. So this is number one. Number two, forgiveness. Forgiveness, forgiveness, forgiveness. A person that goes and spends a tear for Imam Hussein, that sheds a tear for Abu Abdullah al-Hussein, such a person is known that even the fires of hell will be calmed with a teardrop for the sake of Imam Hussein. Why is this granted for Imam Hussein? We mentioned the story of Habil and Qabil. When Habil gave the best of his livestock to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah accepted it. When Imam Hussein on the 10th of Muharram goes behind a tent and he says, "Oh Allah, bear witness, Hussein has given you everything." Do you think that a teardrop of the man, the teardrop of the person that remembers the man that gave everything for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be forsaken, will be forgotten? Number three, we mentioned that it is the time of mourning for 40 days. What happened between these 40 days? We discussed one of them was that Imam Zayn al-Abidin alayhi salam would go and show himself to the people of Sham, and he would spark a new reality for the people, that no longer was this Khalifa someone we should be taking from. No longer is he a representative of the religion of Islam and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So then, let us now discuss the events that would transpire from the 10th of Muharram all the way to the 40th, whereby the first visitation is done to the grave of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. As you know, when they had massacred the followers of Imam Hussein and himself, it was the decree of Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad that the people who died on the battlefield shall not be buried. You want to see evil? When Imam Hussein alayhi salam, when Imam Ali alayhi salam in the battle of Jamal, Muslims against Muslim, after this battle, Imam Ali is so heartbroken that 10,000 Muslims lost their lives. He asks his companions, get these bodies, give each of them an honorable funeral, and make sure that I recite Salat al-Mayyit, the prayer for the dead, above all of them. Imam Ali spent his time doing this for even the opposing side. Yazid's army leaves Imam Hussein's body with his head severed. Some of his companions from multiple tribes, also their heads severed, until finally some woman from this village that was nearby in Karbala, a few days after, they say maybe 2 or 3 days after, went to the Furat, Al-Qama. They wanted to get some water for their village. When they came, they saw that there had been a massacre that had taken place. When they went closer, they noticed that some of these bodies didn't have heads and some of them didn't have clothes either. So then they look around and they see there was a Bedouin man who had camped out there. They said, "Oh man, can you please tell us what happened?" He said, "Such was the story that Yazid waged war against the grandson of the Prophet." They said, "The grandson of the Prophet is among these bodies?" They said, "Indeed, Hussein ibn Ali is among these bodies, but we don't know who is who." So the woman went back to their village of Bani Asad. They went to the men. They said, "Oh men, either you go or we go. But the son of Zahra's body is laying in the sands of Karbala by himself." The men had known about the situation a little bit more about the woman, but they were quiet about it. They said that if we go, we're scared. Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad might have a few more camps left. If we even go and touch those bodies, they will come after our village and they will kill us. So the woman said one more time, I said it once, I'll say it again. "O men of Bani Asad, either you go or we women will go and bury the bodies." The men became shy. They said, "Very well, we'll go towards Karbala." So they go towards Karbala, and now this marks 3 days after the martyrdom of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam. They go over these bodies. They don't know who's who. So they say, "Okay, very well. We can't identify them." So they began to dig the graves. From the distance, they see a man wearing a niqab, riding a horse coming towards them on this horse. He gets off this horse, and they become afraid. Bani Asad becomes afraid. "Oh no, Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad has sent his messenger that he's going to come after us." The man looks at Bani Asad. He ignores them and walks away. When I was reading this really broke my heart. They say that Imam Zain al-Abidin started walking around. The man in niqab started walking around in a way that a child had lost his mother. You see how a child wanders looking for his mother? Bani Asad is watching this man. They're worried. They don't know who he is. They see that he went and picked up an arm by Al-Qama like this, and he held it to his chest. And he began to bring it to the body that had the dismembered arms. And he placed it down. He looked at them. He said, "Kindly dig up these graves. Bury all of them. But this one, don't touch it." Finally, they go and they bury one by one. The man in niqab goes over the body that he said, "Please do not touch this one." They said that he bent over and he placed his hand behind the back of the body. The body had no head. They said the man in niqab kept crying and crying. No sounds would come out, but his niqab had been drenched in his tears. Finally, one of the men of Bani Asad came and they said, "Oh man, we are worried that you are here to tell Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad about what we have done and we've disobeyed them. Can you please introduce yourself?" He said, "It does not concern you. Just continue to bury the bodies." They said, "Please, we ask you by the respect and authority of the body of the severed head that you hold in your hands, introduce yourself to us." He looks at them, he says, "Ana Ali ibn al-Hussein ibn Ali." So they say Imam Zain al-Abidin picks up this body so gently. A gentleness that had not been shown to this body, And they bury his body in that spot. And then the people of Bani Asad look at Imam Zain al-Abidin and they ask for his forgiveness. He said, "Forgive us for not helping your father Hussein." Imam Zain al-Abidin looks at him. He says, "May Allah have mercy on you. Rahmatullah alayh. Thank you for helping me with taking care of these bodies that were left all by themselves. Thank you. I will give you a piece of advice for your own safety. Take your camels, walk east. Once one of your camels stops, it will bend over and a spring of water will emerge before it. Camp there, reside there. You will be safe from Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad. Thank you for your help. They asked the 8th Imam, how did you bury your father, Imam al-Kadhim, in Baghdad when you were nowhere near him in Medina? He said, how did the 4th Imam bury his father when he was kept captive by Ubaydullah ibn Ziyad? We have such power. We too can traverse this earth and go to where we need to be to bury our father. For only a pure ma'soom can bury a ma'soom. So then, this is 3 days after the aftermath. By the 40th, news had reached one of the companions of the Holy Prophet, Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari, radwanallahu alayh. He had heard that finally the family of Hussein had been released from Sham and they are on their way back. Jabir was one of the closest companions to the Holy Prophet. Jabir was one of the people that after 3 hours of Imam Hussein's birth, he ran to the house of Sayyidah Fatima to congratulate her on the birth of Hussein. Jabir was like an uncle to Imam al-Hussein. They say that in childhood, you'll find traditions of Jabir holding Imam Hussein, making sure this boy never sees any hardship. He says to one of his students, his name is Atiyah, he says, Atiyah, let's go and see where the grave of Hussein is that they have massacred. We hear that his family is coming there as well. So Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari makes his way to the land of Karbala for the first time. Now you know, Jabir lived until the time of the 5th Imam. By that time, they say that his eyesight had been no more. They don't explain why at this old age he lost his eyesight, but part of me says that after he visited Karbala and he saw the state, maybe his eyesight started to diminish like Yaqub cried over Yusuf. They don't know. This is my guess. So then he went with Atiyah and he said, Atiyah, I am of old age. Can you find which one of these graves here are Hussein's? So then Atiyah starts reading the graves one by one. And then he says, Jabir, I think I found it. He says, Atiyah, what does it say? It says, هذا قبر لحسين ابن علي الذي قتل at Shah. Jabir throws himself on top of the grave. He said, my Hussein, they told me they killed you, but they didn't tell me they killed you thirsty. They say Jabir began to cry so much that he passed out on top of the grave. When he awakened, it is noted that he said these lines. He says, Habibi ya Hussein, Habibi ya Hussein, Habibi ya Hussein. He waited and he says, oh Hussein, la yaruddu Habibi. You didn't respond to the one in love with you. And then from a distance they saw that this caravan was arriving. Jabir stands up. He says, welcome. Welcome, O lovers of Hussein. Anybody who is a friend of Hussein, welcome. This is the visitation of Karbala. This is the visitation of Arbaeen. He goes forward and he sees that Sayyida Zainab, Imam Zain al-Abidin, Kulthum are the leaders of this caravan. And then he sends his salam. Assalamu alayka, ya zawar al-qabr al-Hussein. Oh, peace be upon you, O the visitors of the grave of Imam al-Hussein. Brothers and sisters, let us not forsake Arbaeen ever. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on this evening, by the purity of your tears and the purity of your consciousness, raise your hands, say, Allah, you didn't invite me this year. Imam Hussein, you didn't call my name to come to your ziyarah this year, but inshallah, all together, inshallah, ya Imami, you call us and give us the privilege of visiting your shrine once again. Wa sallallahu ala Muhammadin wa alihi tahirin walhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين يا حسين
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین شاد رہے کربلا آباد رہے کربلا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین شاد رہے کربلا آباد رہے کربلا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین شاد رہے آباد رہے کربلا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین سلسلہ در سلسلہ سلسلہ در سلسلہ جاری رہے گی صدا حسین شاد رہے کربلا آباد رہے کربلا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین شاد رہے کربلا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین بادشاہ حسین کی سلطنت ہے کربلا جس کا پاسبان ہے مولا غازی باوفا آپ نے حسین باخدا خون سے سجا دی کربلا کربلا کی اے خدا شان یہ رہے صدا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین شاد رہے کربلا کربلا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین شاد رہے کربلا آباد رہے دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین مولا نے بسا دیا ایسا شہر کربلا جس کی خاک بھی شفا جس کی جنتی فضا دوسری نہ ہوگی کربلا ہوگا نہ حسین دوسرا ہوں گے نہ کبھی جدا اب حسین و کربلا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین شاد رہے کربلا آباد رہے کربلا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین شاد رہے کربلا رہے کربلا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین دھڑکنوں میں باخدا گونجتی ہے کربلا ہر صدا میں جا بجا بولتی ہے کربلا کہتا ہے زمانہ یا حسین یا حسین 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 غم تمہارا ہو صدا اے شہید کربلا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین شاد رہے شاد رہے کربلا آباد رہے کربلا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین زندہ باد یا حسین زندہ باد پنجتن کے پانچویں نور عین زندہ باد مرحبا حسین مرحبا آپ نے کمال کر دیا عظمتوں کا بادشاہ آپ کی رہے عطا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین شاد رہے کربلا آباد رہے کربلا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین شاد رہے کربلا رہے کربلا دل کی یہ دعا ہے یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
تمام عالم میں اجماتم تمام عالم میں اجماتم حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے تمام عالم میں اجماتم حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے علم گھروں میں سجے ہوئے ہیں علم گھروں میں سجے ہوئے ہیں زمین پہ فرش عزا بچھا ہے تمام عالم میں حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے سیاہ کپڑے سیاہ چادر غموں کی گرد و غبار سر پر سیاہ کپڑے سیاہ چادر غموں کی گرد و غبار سر پر ہیں سوگواروں کے اشک جاری ہیں سوگواروں کے اشک جاری کہ ثانیہ زہرا بیردا ہے تمام عالم میں اجماتم کس کا ہو رہا ہے نہ چشم پرنم ہو کیوں سوالی جلوس ہے ذوالجناح خالی نہ چشم پرنم ہو کیوں سوالی جلوس ہے ذوالجناح خالی کہ میرا دلدل سوار مولا کہ میرا دلدل سوار مولا زمین کربل پہ سو رہا ہے تمام عالم میں اجماتم تمام کا ہو رہا ہے علم و مشق سکینہ دیکھو تو مومنو بس یہ کہہ کے رو لو علم و مشق سکینہ دیکھو تو مومنو بس یہ کہہ کے رو لو چچا بھتیجی میں کیا ہے نسبت چچا بھتیجی میں کیا ہے نسبت وفائے عباس کیا وفا ہے تمام عالم کا ہو رہا ہے حسین پیری میں دل سنبھالے کہ دل سے الجھی سینہ نکالے حسین پیری میں دل سنبھالے کہ دل سے الجھی سینہ نکالے جوان بیٹا لہو میں ڈوبا جوان بیٹا لہو میں ڈوبا زمین پہ ایڑی رگڑ رہا ہے تمام عالم میں اجماتم نہ مارو برچھی دل نبی پر ابھی ہوئے ہیں جوان اکبر نہ مارو برچھی دل نبی پر ابھی ہوئے ہیں جوان اکبر یہ قتل جس کو تو کر رہا ہے یہ قتل جس کو تو کر رہا ہے یہی تو ہم شکل مصطفیٰ ہے تمام عالم میں اجماتم مدینے والوں خاموش رہنا زینب سے کچھ نہ کہنا مدینے والوں خاموش رہنا غریب زینب سے کچھ نہ کہنا بسا ہوا گھر جو لے گئی تھی بسا ہوا گھر جو لے گئی تھی وہ کربلا میں اجڑ گیا ہے تمام عالم میں عزائے شبیر ہے عبادت جناب زہرا کی ہے امانت عزائے شبیر ہے عبادت جناب زینب کی ہے امانت یہ نوحہ تیرے قلم سے محشر یہ نوحہ تیرے قلم سے محشر جناب زہرا کی ایک عطا ہے تمام عالم میں اجماتم تمام عالم میں اجماتم حسین بے کس کا ہو رہا ہے یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
So yesterday we were talking about the nohas and all that are read. There's a language gap between, the Arabic nohas and the English and the Urdu nohas and all. So I thought I'd just explain the theme of this noha. This is the poet, it's a very old noha. The poet is describing to the city of Medina the return of Bibi Zainab after she has lost everything. That is the theme of this noha, just so you all can understand.
جنگل میں بھرے گھر کو لٹا آئی ہے زینب اے شہر مدینہ عابد کو کسی طرح بچا لائی ہے زینب اے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں بھرے گھر کو لٹا آئی ہے زینب اے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں بھرے بندھوا کے رسن ہاتھوں میں اور خون سلا کر گھر بار لٹا کے گھر بار لٹا کے دیوار بڑے کفر کے ڈھائی ہے زینب اے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں بھرے گھر کو لٹا جس شہر میں شہزادیوں کی طرح رہی تھی نازوں میں پلی تھی نازوں میں سر ننگے اسی شہر میں ہو آئی ہے زینب اے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں دھارس تھی بہت بھائی کو جس بھائی کے دم سے دل پھٹتا ہے غم سے دل پھٹتا ہے غم سے ساحل پہ اکیلا اسے چھوڑائی ہے زینب اے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں چھ ماہ کے اصغر کو بھی جھولے کے بجائے
دکھ درد چھپائے دکھ درد چھپائے آغوش میں تربت کے سلائی ہے زینب ہے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں تھا اکبر ناشاد جو اس گھر کا اجالا وہ گیسو والا وہ گیسو والا مرقد میں اکیلا اسے چھوڑا ہی ہے زینب اے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں بھرے گھر کو لٹا نادم ہے بہت لا سکی قاسم کو نہ ہمراہ واہ حسرت و دردا واہ کبرا کو مگر ساتھ لیے آئی ہے زینب ہے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں پانی جو پیے اہل وطن پیاس نہ بھولیں منہ اشکوں سے دھو لیں منہ اشکوں سے دھو لیں کہنے کو یہ بھائی کا پیام آئی ہے زینب اے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں بھرے منظر وہ بھلا سکتی نہیں تا دم آخر ہے کہنے سے قاصر ہے کہنے سے جو شام کے دربار میں دیکھائی ہے زینب ہے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں بھرے گھر کو لٹا شبیر پہ اب روئے گا تا حشر زمانہ ہے غم کا فسانہ ہے غم کا فسانہ مجلس کے بنا شام میں ڈالا ہی ہے زینب اے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں کس وقت خدا جان قدم نکلے تھے گھر سے چادر چھنی سر سے چادر چھنی سر سے اب تک نہ مصائب سے نکل پائی ہے زینب اے شہر مدینہ جنگل میں بھرے گھر کو لٹا آئی ہے زینب اے شہر مدینہ عابد کو کسی طرح بچا لائی ہے زینب اے شہر مدینہ صلوات
الثانية غفر الله لكم. الثالثة على حب محمد وآل محمد بأعلى أعلى أصواتكم. تحيرني وتذكرني يا جابر لا تناشدني، يا جابر هيا جيت حزني، يا جابر قلبي ذكرته علي من تنشد وما ظن مثل ضيم الذي شفته، عتابك زيد آلامي، ويا عمي حيلي هدمته، يا جابر مرمي من شفته، شبيه المصطفى الأكبر، وبد ما تنعد جروحه، وحرت يا جرحه ضمدنه، يا جابر جسم الموذاير، قميت بجفوف ألم منه. صلوات. يا ابن امي يا مظلوم، رحم الله والديك، سوي الصوت. البارحه وين؟ اليوم وين؟ يا ابن امي يا مظلوم، يمك رجعنا اليوم على الغبره خليناك، ردينا ما لقيناك، ساعد الله قلبك يا سيدتي يا زينب. يا ابن امي يا مظلوم، يمك رجعنا اليوم، يا ابن امي يا مظلوم، يمك رجعنا اليوم، عالغبرة خليناك، ردينا ما لقيناك، يا ابن امي يا مظلوم، يمك رجعنا اليوم، يا ابن امي يا مظلوم، يمك رجعنا اليوم، عالغبرة خليك، ردينا ما لقيناك، عالغبرة خليه، ايه ردينا ما لقيه. الله انا العقيلة وبالحزن قلبي سعارت نيرانه، جيت وجبت هالعايلة وما واحد تلقانا، يمك رجعنا من السبي وراسك رجع ويانا، بنظرات عينه يلتفت وعلى القبر دلانا، وعلى القبر دلانا، راسك رجعنا وياه، يم الجسد جبناه، راسك رجعنا وياه، يم الجسد جبناه، صوت الدمع ناداك، ردينا ما لقيناك يا ابن أمي يا مظلوم يمك رجعنا عالغبرة خليه ردينا بالنوح والهم والدمع رحنا مثل ما جينا واليوم من ذاك اليسور يم الأهل ردينا يم الأهل عالغبرة عفناكم جيثث وطلعنا يا والينا ولما رجعنا الكربلة بس القبور لقينا بس القبور لقينا عالغبرة عفنا بدور جينا ولقينا قبور عالغبرة عفنا بدور جينا ولقينا كان الأمل نلقاك ردينا ما لقيناك يا ابن أمي يا ابن أمي يا بدينا ما لقينا بس ما وصلت الكربلة شفت الطفوف قبالي تذكرت يومي اللي رجعت الله بيك تذكرت يومي اللي رجع مهرك بسرج الخالي مهرك بسر وتذكرت غرت العيد وذكرت سلب عيالي وذكرت عالتل من ريحت أصرخ في قدنا الوالي أصرخ في قدنا الوالي عالغبرة جسمك طاح والحادي بينا راح عالغبرة جسمك طاح والحادي بينا راح بهالحالة فارقناك ردينا ما لقي الله الله يا ابن أمي يا ردينا عالغبرة خليناك ردينا مال فجرية الحادي عشر لليسر من ريت تطلع ودعتك وعفت القلب يمك بذاك المصرع يمك بذاك المصرع ظنيت أعود الكربلة واستلمى لما أرجع ما شفت قلبي ولا شفت جسمك الجان مقطع، جسمك الجان مقطع، اي عفت القلب ومشيت ما شفته من رديت، عفت القلب ومشيت ما شفته من رديت، قلبي اندفن وياك ردي انا مال يا ابن امي يا مظلوم، يمك رجعنا هناك عفناك وبصدرك سهم صابك طلع من ظهرك، وعفناك مرمي مصرعك دمك يصب من نحرك، دمك يصب من نحرك. عفناك وبصدرك سهم صابك طلع من ظهرك، وعفناك مرمي بمصرعك دمك يصب من نحرك، ظنيت ارجع بالضاعن وردود عيني تشوفك، ما كنت ادري برجعيتي القاك خويا بقبرك، القاك خويا شفت الجسد مفقود بس القبر موجود، شفت الجسد مفقود بس القبر موجود، بالدمعة ودعناك ردي انا ما القي يا ابن امي يا مظلوم، بارك الله بيك. يا حسين يا هم ينحمل هم الحرم لو همك، عيلتك من بعد اليسور يا ابن امي رجعت يمك، يا ابن امي رجعت عافتك من يوم الذي بالخيل سحقوا جسمك، ما عدها عنك الخبر من يوم سفكوا دمك، من يوم سفكوا هيا الحرم يا حسين صحت يا نور العين، هيا الحرم يا حسين صحت يا نور ذاك الوضع عفناك ردي انا ما لقيناك، ذاك الوضع ردي انا مال يا ابن امي يا ابن امي، هناك يا حسين هاي العايلة تعلم وتدري شبيها، مسبية للشام طلعت جور الدهر سابيها هاليوم اجت وتوزعت كل وحدة يا مواليها وكل وحدة قعدت يم قابور دمعة حزن تجريها ودمعة حزن تجريها وانا على قبرك جيت بصوت الدمع ناديت وانا على قبرك جيت بصوت الدمع ناديت بهضم اليسر جيناك ردينا مال يا ابن امي يا ابن امي على الغبرة خليناك بعد عيدة مرة ثانية قومي وعاين للهضموها قومي وعاين هذا جوابك قومي وعاين للهضموها إيه قومي وعاين للهضموها هاي اختك يا المتكفلها يا عباس الدمعة تهلها صار عليها قوم اسألها تزت منه لي ذلاها ولا وين خلافك ودوها قوم وعاين قومي وعاين زينب هاي بهيبة حيدر كانت واشرف كل الخدر صارت بحماك وتتذكر ما واحد عالكبرى تجسر ما واحد عالكبرى تجسر وخلافك جسرة وسلبوها قومي وعاين قومي وعاين اتذكر يا عباس الحالة طول اختك ما بان خياله لن تركض بين الخيالة حسين موصيها باطفاله تخاف اهل الخيل يسحقوها قومي وعاين قومي وعاين اختك ما ذلت بسنينك ذلت من قطعة وجفينك ذلت يوم الطف بعينك من كنت تخوض بميدانك قومي وعاين قومي وعاين فارقت اختك ومخيمها بدي حسين انت مسلمها راح ابن امها ومن هو اليمها لا انت اليمها ولا امها يا الله اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد اللهم تقبل منا هذا القليل يا الله اللهم شافي وعافي مرضى المؤمنين والمؤمنات لا سيما هادي العبودي. اللهم شافيه وعافي بحق صاحب هذه المصيبة السيدة زينب، يا الله شافي وعافي وانزل على بدنه الصحة والعافية. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أمي بشفاء المرضى. لتعجيل صاحب العصر. يا كاشف السوء، يا الله 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 يا الله. اللهم اكشف هذه الغمة عن هذه الأمة يا الله. اللهم احفظ زوار الحسين يا الله واكتبنا معهم يا الله. اللهم عجل لوليك الفرج. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم كن حجة ابن الحسن صلواتك عليه في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعهم فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم وهب لنا رأفته ورحمته ودعاءه وخيره. اللهم اجعلنا من أنصاره وأعوانه ومن المستشهدين بين يديه يا الله. إلى أرواح المؤمنين والمؤمنات وأمواتنا وأمواتكم والعلماء والشهداء، وخصوصا إلى المرحوم الحاج كامل، رحم الله من يقرأ الفاتحة مسبوقة بالصلاة على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد ولا تنسون والدي من الدعاء. رحم الله والديكم.
يا علي
يا علي اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. أراك بحيرة ملأت كرينا، أراك بحيرة ملأت كرينا وشتتك الهوى بين فبينا، فطب نفسا وقر بالله عينا. إذا شئت النجاة حسينا لكي تلقى الإله قرير عينا. إذا علم الملائكة منك عزما، إذا علمت الملائكة منك عزما تروم مزاره، كتبوك رسما وحرمت الجحيم عليك حتما، لأن النار ليس تمس جسما عليه زوار غبار حسينا. أزور سيدي ومولاي معتمدي ورجائي ذخري وذخيرتي في آخرتي ودنياي أبا عبد الله الحسين، نيابة عني وعن والدي وعن جميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات الأحياء منهم والأموات، ومن أوصانا بالدعاء والزيارة. نسأل الله. السلام عليك يا وارث آدم صفوة الله، السلام عليك يا وارث نوح نبي الله، السلام عليك يا وارث إبراهيم خليل الله، السلام عليك يا وارث موسى كليم الله، السلام عليك يا وارث عيسى روح الله، السلام عليك يا وارث محمد حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا وارث أمير المؤمنين ولي الله، السلام عليك يا وارث فاطمة الزهراء سيدة النساء، السلام عليك يا ابن محمد المصطفى، السلام عليك يا ابن علي المرتضى، السلام عليك يا ابن فاطمة الزهراء وابن خديجة الكبرى، السلام عليك يا ثار الله وابن ثاره والوتر الموتور. أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر وأطعت الله ورسوله حتى أتاك اليقين، فلعن الله أمة قتلت ولعن الله أمة ظلمت ولعن الله أمة سمعت بذلك فرضيت به. يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله، أشهد أنك كنت نورا في الأصلاب الشامخة والأرحام المطهرة، لم تنجسك الجاهلية بأنجاسها ولم تلبسك من مدلهمات ثيابها، وأشهد أنك من دعائم الدين وأركان المؤمنين، وأشهد أنك الإمام البر التقي الرضي الزكي الهادي المهدي، وأشهد أن الأئمة من ولدك كلمة التقوى وأعلام الهدى والعروة الوثقى والحجة على أهل الدنيا، واشهدوا الله وملائكته وأنبياؤه ورسله إني بكم مؤمن وبإيابكم موقن بشرائع ديني وخواتيم عمل وقلبي لقلبكم سير وأمري لأمركم متبع صلوات الله عليكم وعلى أرواحكم وعلى أجسادكم وعلى أجسامكم وعلى شاهدكم وعلى غائبكم وعلى ظاهركم وعلى باطنكم. السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي أبا الفضل العباس ابن أمير المؤمنين، وسيدتي ومولاتي أم المصائب الحوراء زينب، ورحمة الله وبركاته. وإلى أرواح جميع المؤمنين والمؤمنات أمواتكم وأمواتنا، وإلى أرواح جميع الشهداء والعلماء نهدي لهم ثواب الفاتحة مع الصلوات.
وآل محمد مأجور رحمه الله والديك.